It's great, actually.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, March 16th, 2020, and this is a regular Moscow City Council meeting. And for those that are out in the audience with us, if you'd please stand, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, with that, a couple of little messages here. We've got an amended agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to Jen Piffner for a moment.
Yeah, we have an amended agenda. There were several things that happened over last week. On Wednesday, the agenda was published and printed on schedule. What happened since Wednesday were a couple of things regarding coronavirus. Just one note, Maureen Laughlin is joining us via phone. And Maureen, if you could mute your phone, we'll avoid some feedback on this end. So just a note there. Okay, so with the coronavirus concerns, there were on Friday several declarations of disaster or emergency states, one with the state of Idaho, and then again with our federal, President Trump made that declaration as well. Following those declarations, Mayor Lambert issued a state of emergency for the city of Moscow. Given those actions and activities that happened on Friday, several new agenda items have been proposed for this evening, and the amended agenda is as published and in front of the council members this evening. What we do need to do is accept that amended agenda pending that good faith reason of new information coming to light over the last week.
I move approval of the new agenda for the reasons stated.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Art and a second by Sandra to approve the amended agenda. Maureen, I'll start to roll with you. Testing you out. I'll start to roll with Sandra.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, no, I had aye. Sorry, I just had unmute. Sorry.
Okay.
And aye.
Okay, very well, good enough. Now, ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons for this proclamation was come out, and we will be talking more about this on item number 8 tonight on the preparedness. But what we're going to be doing for this next 6 weeks or so is there will be several things that will not show up on the agenda that usually shows up. One will be a public comment and mayor's response period. We're not going to have that for a while, and these are all temporary things. We will be making adjustments as time goes along. And also, any public comment on action items, we're not going to take either. And the whole reason for this is the 7 years I've been a mayor, we've tried very, very hard to get as many people down here as possible. And we're doing the exact opposite of that now because of this COVID-19 that we have. We know that this is a very serious thing, and we're out in the forefront on this. And so we're going to move through our agenda. We're going to talk about the items. Council will make deliberations. There'll be few reports this evening, and also through this thing, there's going to be commission meetings that will be canceled, and as well as a bunch of other things. We will be working from day to day and week to week on this as we go along. But anyway, this is a 6-week process. So with that in mind, items 2, staff recognition report, there is none this evening. I do, however, have a consent agenda that I would like to ask council for.
A consent agenda?
Yes, we have a consent agenda.
Your Honor, I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, I'm going to give Gina made the motion. I'm going to give Maureen the second to approve the consent agenda as is. I'll start to roll with Art.
Aye.
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 Sorry.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Maureen. And like I said, item 2, we do not have a staff recognition report. I do have, however, one commission, and this is Cassandra Goodmanson, Sustainable Environment Commission, expiration of 12/31 of 2020. This is a college seat for 1 year.
I move approval of that appointment.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Art and a second by Gina to approve Ms. Goodmanson as a Sustainable Environment Commission. I'll start to roll with Sandra.
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you, Maureen. Okay, item number 4, as I said, we will not have public comment. Item number 5, the Heart of the Arts, we canceled because the folks did not want to be here because of things going on. So we are going to move right into item number 6, which is our comprehensive annual financial report presentation. And Sarah Banks is here with us, as well as Mitch Marks. And so, Sarah, you have the podium.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you are aware, our fiscal year ended September 30. From that point, we started working pretty diligently to close our books and get ready for our auditors who came on site the first week of December. And from that point, once they completed their field work, we got to work on our CAFR, which with the help of several staff within finance and through the city, we were able to complete that. And at this point, what we have presented to you was our completed draft CAFR, and we have Mitch Marks here, who is our auditor from Fresno Gage, and he's going to report on how the city finished fiscal year 2019. So with that, I'll go ahead and have Mitch come up.
Welcome, Mitch. How are you this evening?
Good, how are you this evening?
Is that screen on?
Do we have a, okay. Zach is our person that makes all these things work for us, audio, visual, so on and so forth. Okay, there we go.
Just click this to change page. Oh, I did see that there. Forward, backward, and so that was forward? Other one. No, yeah, okay. Hey, Zach. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As Sarah mentioned, we have completed the audit for the year ending September 30th, 2019, and have issued our report. We've published the comprehensive report, and I think everybody got a copy of this. I hope. We were a little late getting it out, but pretty much the layout and design, we don't have a lot to say. It's the Governmental Audit Standards Board gives us direction on how to put it, and that's what when we do it correctly, and you guys have received that certificate from GFOA for quite a few years, it's considered presented in court with generally accepted accounting principles. We're supposed to talk about management responsibilities and our responsibilities, but pretty much these financial statements are your financial statements. We do a report on them, but the documentation, accuracy, and everything in here, you're responsible for internal controls and the presentation. We're responsible for expressing an opinion on the fair presentation in these financial statements.
Hi, can you hear me?
Is that Ann?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Ann. We're on the financial reports right at the moment. Item number 6. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
There are three opinion letters in the financial statement. The very first one is a general report, and it says that the financial statements are fairly presented. The second one is the governmental auditing standards. We have to give a report on internal controls and on compliance. We did not come across anything that we felt that the city was not complying with the laws or your internal controls needed tweaking. And then the Single Audit Act, the city expended over $750,000 of federal financial assistance. So the last opinion letter is associated specifically with that. And they're all what they consider unmodified opinions. Basically, for the year ending on the citywide financial statements, the city increased about $7.9 million from the previous year, or about 6.64%. The restricted fund balances are, split up there. You issued the debt last year for the new police station, and since you did that, you still had that money on hand at September 30th, so that is designated for debt service. You have some other items that you have specifically set aside. You look at the total government-wide expenses, that's off the statement of activities. You can see the last 5 years that they've grown a little bit. That includes depreciation, so that as you go, it's not necessarily cash or what your capital outlay is, but that includes depreciation. The city has the major funds for the governmental, about 5 or 6 different funds there. Those are the ones that Our non-proprietary type funds, the proprietary, like see at the bottom, are enterprise, water, sewer, sanitation. That's quite a few, but then basically they had a push several years ago that if you couldn't have a fund that showed that it really had a purpose, that you collapse it, and you did that like with art, and I think you did something Parks and Recreation or something about 3, 4, 5 years ago. So you have less funds than you did probably, several years ago. And basically, the general fund is your catch-all. It's the one that, has everything in it that's not required to be in another fund. It's basically your chief operating fund. And this is quite broad. I mean, your police, your fire, your administration, pretty much everything falls underneath that. Special revenue, that's where you get specific revenues to, like the state gives you money for your highways. That's why you've got the street, culture and recreation, Hamilton, based on the money that was left to the city several years ago. And the transit center is a newer fund in the last several years. Give you a little comparison over the last 5 years on revenues for our fund balances for general, streets, and culture and recreation. You're holding pretty consistent, in the last 5 years. It's gone up a little bit on your general fund. And it's like I say, pretty much all of them are pretty flat, which is pretty good over the years with, potential funding that may be limited in certain aspects. Just a little on what is general government, and like I said before, a lot of this falls into that, and the general fund catch, quite a bit of that. Public safety, again, that's in your general fund. So when you look at the financial statements, it says public safety, these items fall into that. A little comparison on your general fund, for again, the last, 5 years, you can see the line going up on revenues, and it's still, pretty consistent. It's a little slow growth, and it's not a bad thing. It's better than going down or having ups and downs that are like the stock market lately. It's holding pretty consistent, which is good. Culture and recreation, when you look at that on the, it covers like these 6 areas up above there, plus 1912 facility and arts and events. Little comparison on for the culture and recreation for the last 5 years. Again, you're looking, you are a little higher in 19 than you were in probably compared to the last 4 years. And again, the biggest item is culture and recreation. Hamilton Parks and Rec is probably your second biggest one on there. Your street fund, again, you're pretty consistent, a little bit up. Had a little jump in 17. You're back pretty steady. Your enterprise funds are like water, sewer, sanitation. You actually have 6 funds because water has, and sewer and sanitation, like it says, has capital projects fund. So in your accounting records, when you see it, there are 2 different funds for each one of those. We put them together for a presentation, or we assist in putting them together. It's your financial statement. So, and it is a different accounting treatment than governmental funds. You're going to see your accounts receivable recognized here, more accounts payable. Debt you see in enterprise funds that you don't see in the governmental. You can see here, your water and fund, you've pretty good jump there in capital expenses in 18, going down a little bit in 19. I think the project was mostly finished. You had some $400,000 or $500,000 this year left on that water fund, so that's going downward. Your net position is rising. This is one of those little, you can do almost anything with numbers because you recognize the grant or the revenue for the loan over time, and then you depreciate it over a lot. So you're not picking up the expense as you construct your water project. You're going to pick it up later. So, but the grants and the loans and such are sometimes recognized in here, and so that inflates your revenue, and which increases your net position. So over time, as you depreciate your new projects, that will go back down. The sewer fund, you see the revenue is pretty good stream, and it's holding. It's exceeded every year in the last 5 years your expenses and capital expenses. I'll give you again a little on the sewer fund, the increase in your net position. Sanitation fund, again, it's, you got a pretty good rise. The last 5 years, your revenues exceeded expenses, and this is not always easy to do. We do quite a few little, not little, but, well, we do little cities, but do the bigger ones too, and this is one of the tougher items, where's the break? The contractor raises it, how much do we increase, how much do we pass on? But you've been able to, stand about equal. And again, that fund balance in your sanitation and has increased. The capital projects part is, appears to be increasing more than the other. That was a very quick overview. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, I think most folks, Mitch, what we're always interested in an audit is, number one, are we doing the right things with our citizens' money? And, in relationship to revenues coming in and expenditures, what we're doing, and making sure that this audit is a clean audit. And the CAFR awards that we've gotten, I think it's 12 in a row, I'm guessing. But 10 in a row, how many? 16 in a row. Well, there you have it, 16 in a row, so we're pretty consistent on it. Thank you for the help out there from the audience. But that's can make our customers, which are our citizens, feel pretty good about what we're doing with our money. And then, it's their money, it's our city, so. Questions, Art?
Yeah, and as I recall, having an unmodified opinion is a good thing.
Correct. That means that we didn't make any except for type things in here. Unmodified is something you want.
Ladies? No. Maureen, do you have any questions, you or Ann?
This is Ann. No, none for me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Ann. You come through nice and clear.
Great. None for me either.
Okay, well,
I do have a statement. I don't want the 16 CAFR awards that we've gotten in the last 16 years to downplay the amount of work that our finance department does on a daily, if not by minute basis. So I applaud you, all of you, for the work that you do. Thank you for keeping us in a straight line.
Well, I'd like to move to accept the City of Moscow Audited Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for 2019 as presented.
Second.
okay, we have a motion by Art and a second by Gina to accept the City of Moscow's audited comprehensive annual financial report for FY29 as presented. I'll start the roll with Sandra.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
This is Ann. Aye.
Okay?
Maureen, aye.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Very good. Thank you, Mitch, very much for that report. And Sarah, to you and Renee and the whole staff down there in finance, you guys do a good job. They're very, very serious about what they do, and they just move on with things, so thank you very much. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to item number 7, Jim Lyles Rotary Park Playground Equipment Selection. And we have Jen Piffner here this evening to do the presentation. Hello,
Yeah.
Jen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Let's just get this presentation up. So this was presented last week at the committee meeting. This is some exciting and happy news for this coming year. So we have Jim Lyle Rotary Park Playground Equipment Selection. David Schott presented this last week and would typically present as well, but in the spirit of keeping our numbers down, I'm here to help present this evening. What we've got is the Parks and Recreation Department has requested authorization to purchase playground equipment and rubber tile safety surfacing at the cost of $58,000 for the playground equipment and then an additional $3,000 for the materials and supplies for the safety tile. The equipment is intended for 5 to 12-year-old children and it'll replace the existing wooden structure that we have at Rotary Park now. The RFP was issued in November of 2019. We got 9 responsive proposals. And we've, by we, I mean the Parks and Recreation Department has instituted public voting on the proposals for quite a few years now. In addition, they've taken that online for the last several years to allow folks to cast their vote as to what they would like their neighborhood park to look like. So we do have that option online. And then Parks and Recreation, the commission and staff host 2 public forums. And you can cast a paper ballot at that time, or you can send that in or visit the HERC, visit the boards that are presented there. They have all 9 options that they'll display, and you can vote there as well. And for this particular project, we got 346 votes. 250 of those were online, and we had 96 paper votes. The successful bidder was Playcraft from All Play is the supplier, option 1. It's the item highlighted there. You can see the total of the votes there with 86 online, 45 paper ballot, 131 votes total. They were by far the winner. And this is what that playground is intended to look like. So quite a bit of an upgrade from the current wooden structure that we have at Rotary Park. So this project was approved in the FY20 budget with the use of Hamilton funds. That's part of the process that we've been using in Parks and Recreation to include more playgrounds, pathways, accessible pathways to parks in Moscow. Rotary Club has been working with the city in this one because they are part of, that park is part of the history that they've had a hand in. And then Parks and Recreation Commission considered all of the public input, the successful bidder of All Play Systems to, in that online voting and in-person voting process, to provide the playground equipment, and they considered that at their February 27th meeting and approved that that recommendation move forward to council. And Public Works and Finance reviewed and recommended approval at March 9, just last week. So it's forwarded to the council this evening for consideration of approval. Staff recommendation is to accept that approval. So one of the questions that came up at committee was the difference between the $58,000 and the $3,000. The $58,000 was the budgeted amount for the playground, and then the $3,000 was additional for materials just for the tile installation itself, materials and whatnot for that. And staff recommends that proposal that was shared at committee last week.
And Jen, one of the things, excuse me, that we run into, that we've had been success with is Calvin Macy and his crew being
Thank
able to
you.
put these things together.
Yes.
Yeah, and the significance about that, every time we put one of these playgrounds together, it saves us $15,000 to $20,000 depending on the magnitude and the size of it. And so we've got a certified person on the staff. You want to speak just a
Yeah,
little about that?
Calvin leads that crew, our park installers, so we have a crew of parks maintenance folks that will put these things together from the ground up. They have also done some fun things. They'll have kids that are watching the installation of these playgrounds, and they're standing outside the construction fence. And once they test it and everything, they'll say, hey, we need an official tester. So they'll have kids come in once they've got everything ready to go and safety tested. So it's just really neat to be able to have our staff out there in the community, putting these things together, saving the funds, and involving those neighborhoods and what those playgrounds look like for those groups.
What's the proposed installation timeline?
It would be this summer. Given some other things that we're working through at this time, those schedules may be a little bit loose, but it'll be installed this summer and with a grand opening before it gets cold this fall.
Sandra?
Do I remember that, Jen, you were the one that started the online voting? Did I hear that correctly?
That was very kind of David to say last week. That was very kind of him. We had just gotten our new website up and running. Zach actually had helped us with, I think it really started with Art Walk poster voting, and then went to market poster voting, and then we thought, well, what other things can we put out there that people could provide input on? So I appreciate that, but that was definitely just a group effort. So thank
It's great to have it online.
It's
That's my
nice. It
other
is
point.
nice.
So well done for all of it. It's really nice having it online.
Yeah.
Gina, do you have anything for?
I don't. I'm going to make a motion, if I can, please, to recommend approval of the purchase of playground equipment and rubber tile safety surfacing at the cost of $58,000 from All Play Systems for Jim Lyle Rotary Park, and an additional $3,000 for materials and supplies for park staff to install the playground equipment and rubber tile safety surfacing with funding from the Hamilton Fund.
Second.
Wow.
Quick question here. Maureen, you or Ann, do either one of you have any comments on this?
No, I think it looks nice.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
Okay, good. All right, well, we've got a motion by Gina and a second
I'll
by...
second it, Maureen.
A second by Sandra to recommend approval of the purchase of the playground equipment and the rubber tile safety surfacing at the cost of $58,000 from All Play Systems for the Jim Lyle Rotary Park, and an additional $3,000 for materials and supplies for park staff to install the playground equipment and rubber tile safety surfaces with funding from the Hamilton Fund. I will start to roll with Art.
Aye.
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 This is Ann. Aye.
Okay?
Maureen, aye.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, with that, we are going to move into item number A, which we've all been anxiously awaiting, and that is our pandemic influenza preparedness plan, disaster management plan annex. And I want to share something before Jen Piffner starts on this. This is a document that I'm very, very proud that our staff came up with. Huge kudos to Jen as well as others, staff members, to put this together as quickly as they did. A lot of work, a lot of effort, very well written, and so we look forward to the presentation.
Oh, thank you. So this pandemic influenza preparedness plan, this is actually an annex piece to our disaster management plan. Our disaster management plan is managed by Chief Brian Nickerson in our fire department. So this is just one small piece, and it really relates to the organization of the city of Moscow, not necessarily the entire community, but there is some overlap there. So I appreciate the mayor's comments. Thank you very much. This plan started in 2007 with the H1N1 pandemic that came in 2009, which was really where we got to put it into play and see if there was some planning that could happen with that, which worked well. So being able to update that document 10 years later was interesting, and it was also nice to have that information that we started with then, because a lot of those things served us well. When I go through this, I just hop right into federal guidelines, because the biggest piece, or the biggest two pieces of this plan really look to our Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, and then the Public Health I do this wrong every time, Public Health Idaho North Central District. Those are our two points of reference for this planning document. So what you have in front of you, it's also posted online. I'll show that here in just a minute. The plan starts with an executive summary, a bit of an overview, talks about past pandemics. It talks about what pandemic flu is versus seasonal flu and how to tell the difference between those two. And then as far as it goes with the actual planning piece of the document, these federal guidelines are where we start. The CDC is where we get both of these pieces of information. Planning intervals is really the life cycle of what a pandemic could look like. And really, there's one section here is bolded, this acceleration of pandemic wave. That's really what we're trying to mitigate and prevent as we look to what the state's doing, what local agencies are doing, the feds are doing, and we're really wanting to mitigate what that looks like. So investigation of cases with a new virus, recognition of the increased potential. There's initiation of a pandemic wave when we see more cases, both confirmed and suspected. And then that acceleration, you've heard people probably refer to the steep curve, that we're trying to flatten the curve. Those are the things that we're looking at here. The CDC also provides us with a mitigation preparedness scale. It's really a three-level, three-tiered approach. It's really how we approach our planning efforts as well. As I go through the presentation, you'll see quite a bit of our work happens right here in the preparedness phase, which is where we've been for several weeks. It's the identification of a new influenza, looking at what that's doing in the world, how that could affect us, really where that potential event is identified. I'll walk through the different things we did in that phase here in a moment. And then minimal to moderate, the way that we interpret that as either suspected to confirmed cases in our community, moving up to substantial, which would be confirmed cases in our community. So that's the scale that we used when developing the plan. Public Health Idaho North Central District provides a great outline for any agency, business, municipality, to put together their own plan. So this is really the framework that we used. They have these bullets. I'll go through them here in a moment, but really it's taking them one at a time to identify how your organization can best plan for a pandemic. And it just gives great step-by-step instructions for working through a plan. So again, a lot of thanks to the Public Health District and then CDC for giving us the framework for this. So prevention, we lumped a few together here. So prevention and mitigation, infection control, and workplace exposure. So we have sections on each of these in the plan. Really what we're looking at there is what is the CDC telling us on how to prevent and mitigate? What's infection control look like? What does workplace exposure look like? Really it comes down to these items here, and it's not as clear on the screen, but avoiding close contact with people who are at risk, covering your cough, sneezing into a tissue, throwing your tissue away, avoiding touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, cleaning all surfaces, especially those that you touch or use frequently, staying home if you're sick and not going anywhere except to get medical care, and then washing your hands with water and soap for at least 20 seconds. So some of those basic infection control type things that make a significant difference when you're looking at prevention and mitigation, infection control, and workplace exposure. So we've been sharing information with our employees on this for the past couple of weeks. We're making sure that we have supplies on hand to be able to do hand sanitizing, to wipe down public spaces. We're looking at the types of supplies we have and making sure they have 70% alcohol content. So some of those kinds of things, making sure we're sharing that information, having our employees go through those steps and be mindful of those things. So workplace exposure, it talks a little bit about in mitigation how to stay home, or that it's recommended to stay home if you are ill. For our workplace policies and sick employees, we have in place already our sick leave personnel policy. It's a general philosophy of the city that employees who are ill should be responsible and not come to work. This would be seasonal flu, this would be cold, this would be any time outside of a pandemic, we encourage this. Supervisors are also required to work with their employees to enforce that philosophy. So if you have someone who's at work and is sick, especially in these times, supervisors are empowered to say, hey, you know what, I see that you're not feeling well, take some time away, get healthy. Really, we want to make sure that our employees stay healthy, and then how that impacts our public to keep them healthy as well. So those policies are already in place. We have our employees sign off on those when they join us, and so nothing new there. We just highlight that those are in place. So communication protocol, this was interesting because it did change pretty significantly from 2009. We have more channels to share with. Here is a screenshot of our website. If you go on the website, you have your major, we call them mega menus. So you have government, services, residents, etc. Each one of those menus, this little area right here pops up. You click on this information, it takes you to our coronavirus or COVID-19 information page. So using our website significantly. We also have traditional media releases, social media posts, utility billing newsletters. We'll have one of those coming out here in the next few weeks. I anticipate we'll have some information in that. We also have the opportunity for sponsored public service announcements or paid advertisements. So we haven't gotten to that point yet, but we have those in our toolkit should we need them. Oh, one other item I should mention that I didn't put up here is our listserv. We have listservs in place now for a variety of different information. You don't have to be part of our media release list to sign up for press releases. So we have some options to get information out that way as well. So personal preparedness, we have, again, this is another shot of our website. This is where that little link before will take you. It's got an overview right here of the mayor's proclamation that was sent last Friday. And then we've also got quick links. This is CDC, Public Health, Latah County, University of Idaho, Moscow School District, Gritman Medical Center, and then we've got community resources. We have a really hefty page of food banks, different social services that are available, so we linked those as well. We also have on that page our pandemic influenza preparedness plan right here, and then that specific proclamation that the mayor issued last Friday. So these are just the different ways that we use our communication protocol to let people know different sources for information. Again, the CDC is really the best point organization on prevention, mitigation, what to do if you're not feeling well, those types of things. So this is the bulk of the plan. Once we get through all these different pieces that are really blanket or umbrella portions for the entire organization. We have business functions, absenteeism, and workforce input. So this is what the bulk of our work updating last week is determining our continuity of operations, making sure they're still current and relevant, making any updates that we need to. There's several sections, and we have 17 different departments or divisions. Within each of those, you have a line of succession. We have operations and staffing, and that's broken into 3 levels. Essential services that have to happen no matter what, important but not essential services, and then our routine services that could be temporarily suspended. We also have communication, who's the spokesperson, who's the backup spokesperson, resources, what do those folks need to make sure they can continue those essential services, and then what type of interdepartmental or division assistance. For instance, a great example is pretty much every department and division said we need information systems to continue to do what we do. So some of those types of things are pretty obvious, but we work through other assistance opportunities as well. So you see that from page, I think it's 20 to 95. It's all 17 departments, what that looks like for each. So one of the other items is social distancing, and we took a phased approach to this as well. So all of those things happen in the preparedness phase, where nothing's really happening. We don't have any confirmed cases. We might not even have any suspected cases. So that's all the work that we've done over the last week plus to make sure we're ready for anything else that may come forward. So minimal to moderate phase is the next area. That's when we have either suspected or confirmed cases in our community. And then substantial phase is when we certainly have confirmed cases in our community. So social distancing is the biggest recommendation that's coming from the CDC. We broke that into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is business as usual. We're enhancing sanitization, staying home if you're sick, or pushing information out. Excuse me. Oh.
You okay?
Yeah, tickled.
What?
That's how it starts.
Yeah, cough when you're doing this. Right?
One thing I want to say, and while Jen's getting a sip of water, is that the site, the most reliable site is cdc.gov. That's a very easy site to remember, and it's a very easy site to get onto, and they change that thing all the time. They update that daily and multiple times a day, and I don't know how many different people in our city I've spoke to that can go on and look through this, and it just tells them the things that they should do as an individual. And of course, our website that has this plan and this pandemic plan in place is available to everybody. I don't know how many different folks I told this to this weekend, talked to the paper as well about it. I want to talk a little bit more to the paper this evening when we're done here, before she gets away from us, by the way. But this is something that we're taking very, very serious as a city. I'm taking it very serious as the mayor, our city staff, but everybody in our city is taking this very serious. And one of the things I really like, and the whole idea behind this, is to get this thing stopped before it gets a hold and takes off. We know that we're going to have some of these things happen. But if we're out in the forefront on this and we're running with it and we're doing all these things, and look around, folks, there's not very many people in this council chamber, and we're working with a skeleton crew, and that's simply because we do not want very many people here. Not that we don't want to hear what they have to say. If you've got something out there in TV land, you can email us, you can call us. We're very happy to talk through anything, but these meetings are going to be short, brief, and to the point, so that we do not take a chance of getting our citizens infected, as well as our council and our staff. So, with that,
Thank you for that cover, Mayor. I appreciated that. So what the mayor just spoke to is shifting or staggering schedules is another important, no, I'm going to lose it again. Excuse me, which is where we're at now. Also looking at working remotely. So the final step would be travel restrictions, and we're looking at implementing those as well. Excuse me, and these are our references. These are who we go to for the information. This is all lined out in our plan and online as well. So that is luckily the end of that presentation. My apologies.
well, Jen, you covered a lot. Jen covered a lot of information very, very quickly, and she's always very, very concise. Earlier in the meeting, I discussed things like just some of the things. Commission reports, we're not going to be having those during the council meeting. Public comment and mayor's response period, we're not going to have that. So reports by councilors won't happen because they won't have commissions that they're going to. Now, there will be things that we'll be doing, and that doesn't mean we do not want to hear what people have to say. What that does mean is we're doing the social distancing. You notice this up here, we've got at least 6 feet between Sandra, Gina, myself, and Art. And, once we get Maureen and Ann or Brandy here, we're going to kind of mix things around. It's a paradigm shift for our city and how we do things. We're going to conduct business, we're going to keep moving forward, and we are going to win on this thing. Now, we got a long road ahead of us. And one of the statements I made to the paper Sunday when I was interviewed, I said, some people may think this is even an overreaction, and I hope it is an overreaction. If it's an overreaction, then we're doing the absolute right thing. That's how I see it. And so I want folks to know that nobody in the city of Moscow is sitting on their duff not doing something. We are doing this, and we're being proactive about it, and we're going to hammer this thing through. And I will say this too, actually, the things that I've seen personally in this state and this nation is we're doing this together. And one thing for sure, in our area, we've got to be able to work together. I've always talked about collaboration, working together, and we've got a lot of things that we need to do here. And we're seeing things at the schools, the universities, so on and so forth. And so we're very serious about this, folks.
Absolutely. So any questions on the plan that I could answer?
Sandra.
I have one, well, maybe two, but one right now. So when I hear about the sanitation and That's fantastic. And then I had this visual of the guys in the trucks and the gals in the trucks. They're going around town. Do they have stuff in their vehicles to wipe everything down when they get in and out and all of that stuff?
So Laytaux Sanitation is managing that. Tim Davis is working with them as well to make sure that we're keeping them as healthy and as safe as possible. And what do we need to do if we do have sanitation workers that either get ill or need some of those sanitation type supplies? So we're working through that with them.
But, I mean, even in the city trucks, like in the red trucks when they're driving around town, that too, but.
So this would be a great example, our police department, for instance. Essential city service, that is a public safety issue, we'll keep that going. The recommendation is when you get done with your shift, you wipe your car down. When you start your shift, you get in a car, you wipe it down. Stay in the car, don't come into the station if you don't need to. So those are some of the things we're doing.
Sandra, one of the things, we had a meeting here with department heads this morning, almost 2 hours long, and talked about a bunch of different things and look at things in a different way. The paradigm shift of stuff. And so department heads have came up with ideas and things, and it also has to do with staffing. What do they do if half their staff's not here? Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you're sick, we want you to stay home. We don't want you running around and being in a public place with others. That's why we're closing the schools for a while. Kids, the most susceptible people to this are folks my age and older, okay? 60 and above, and kids have not, there have not been cases of that, but they can be carriers of this. Anybody can be a carrier of this and not even know they really have it. And that's why we've got to be so very, very careful about what we do. And, geez, I've paid more attention to the Centers for Disease and Control in these last several weeks, 3 weeks, than I have in my entire life, and I'm very impressed with the information. These people are professional doctors that know exactly what they're talking about. Art and myself, we were back in D.C. and we sat, Arthur and myself and Gary Reeder, and listened to some excellent conversations about this COVID-19 coronavirus, with some very smart people, and the whole idea is to get out in the forefront of this thing and kill it before it can spread. We know there's a bell-shaped curve on these, and you can see this on the CDC, by the way, and it goes like this. And if you look at the one that gave an example of Italy, who's just really been plagued, and it goes along like this, and what's happened, they didn't do anything, and all of a sudden, boom, that thing spiked up and came down, and they've got all these problems, and that country is just shut off, basically, city to city, and I mean, everything's shut down. We know we're going to have this happen in the state of Idaho. We know we're going to have it in our area. And if we could have that bell curve go like this, and that's our whole drill, then we can work with it much, much better and get back to recovery much, much sooner. We know that. We know that as a city, we know that as a state, and we know that as a nation. So I kind of get on the bandwagon talking about this because this is the only thing that's been on my mind for the last 2 weeks, and in particular this last particular week. This manual, ladies and gentlemen, and Maureen, you and Ann do not have one of these yet, but you've got one. It'll be in your locker, your cabinet, your mail space, and this thing is an important document. It'd be great for every single person in the city of Moscow to read this because they'll see how serious we are about this and moving forward. And look, we win together. We're going to plug away on this thing, and we never give up. One of the things I told the department heads this morning is, look, the sun always goes up in the east and goes down in the west, and that's going to happen tomorrow, a year from now, 2 years from now, or whatever, and life will go on, and we need to work through this. And this is going to be some tough things for people. Businesses have been shut down. Airlines have been shut down. We've got, you can't go to Canada, come from Canada, go to the Far East, go to Europe, and they're telling people, do not fly. If you don't have a reason to go somewhere, don't go. And we've taken it seriously here in the city. We've canceled different conventions and different things that staff and training have usually gone to, and it's about precautions because we don't want them exposed, we don't want them bringing something back to us exposed, and the list goes on. And so, clean, 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 wash, wash, wash. I'm kind of paranoid about it, actually, in a way, because I wash my hands more than I don't think I've got fingerprints anymore. I wash my hands so much with different sanitizers and things, if there's such a thing. But anyway, I am very in tuned on this. I don't want to take up all the conversation, but you get a chance to see what the mayor of Moscow sees about this and feels about this, and we're very, very serious about it, ladies and gentlemen. So,
Just a mild question. Our document here concerns primarily the way the city of Moscow functions, and I'm sure that other people out there have questions too about, and this might be for Mia, but how far does legal authority within the city extend to dealing with businesses and the way citizens go about their lives in town? For example, over in the state of Washington, every bar and restaurant is shut down. And who is in charge of all that, and where do we relate to it?
Well, I'll take part of that question. Well, Washington, it was the governor who implemented that order. And the same would be true, at least at this stage, for us here. Right now, the mayor's local emergency is specific to the city. It's specific to the city functions, events that are held at city places, parks, city buildings, and those sorts of events. We are recommending that the public, or the mayor's recommending that the public follow those same recommendations that we are following, which is the CDC guidelines and the Idaho Public Health North District, also complicated. So I think right now, at least it's my understanding with the way the order sits, Idaho, the governor could declare, similar to the Washington governor, if he felt that bars and restaurants should be closed, the governor could do that. He would have the authority to do that. Mayor Lambert, with his order, or local emergency that he's declared, he has not taken that step at this point in time. But certainly he would have the authority to do so under the Idaho statutes to make that sort of declaration for our city if he felt it were appropriate.
and we're early in the phase on this thing, folks, and so we'll see how it goes. But things can change from day to day. From Friday to Monday, things change, and we're going to see that in item number 9 when we talk about that, on that resolution, because we don't know where this thing's going, but we're very serious about it. We've got to do the best and be in the forefront as best as possible. And with that being said, you know, sometimes we have to make some tough calls and some tough decisions, and we will do whatever it is we have to do. And we've got, I know, like schools are out for a while, and I'm guessing, they haven't said this yet, but it looks like all the outdoor activities, baseball and track and these different things, are going to stop for a while in our Parks and Rec programs, because we just can't afford to have people mingling, and they're talking about groups of 50, and that number is going down as we speak. And so we want to have everybody involved, but they're telling you, folks, if you don't have a reason to be somewhere, stay home, and that really hurts economies. That does hurt business. I was a business guy for 40 years. That makes it very, very difficult. But the sooner we get this thing nailed, the better off all of us will be, and the sooner we'll be able to get back to a norm. And like I said, some of these things, they're temporary. We don't know how long that will go. We will be looking at these things daily and weekly, and we'll be making some adjustments as we go. So we've never experienced this, so we're trying to give this a best shot.
One more comment was that I saw today that the city's doing a good job on the social media pages about getting news out. Some people were concerned about the quality of water. Are they going to get COVID-19 from water? No. You know, it's kind of come out and get the facts and pay a little bit of attention. Don't necessarily listen to what your neighbor might have to say about things just by way of opinion. So try to follow the city's website and jump up on it, and there's good information there too that should provide some comfort.
And see, that's cdc.gov. All kinds of frequently asked questions. There are reports and strange things that come out on Facebook. And so some of the social media forget that stuff, because a lot of it is just baloney, and go right to the source and read through the stuff that's accurate. The people that really know what they're talking about. And that's our health officials, and that goes all the way up through the food chain to the top. And it would have been great to be able to have a video of that what is the guy called?
Epidemiologist?
Epidemiologist, that's a tough word for me to say. And this guy was extremely brilliant, just zipped through things, and Art and myself and Gary were listening, as well as 2,000 other people about what was going on in this. And it was an amazing thing to see. And the biggest thing, and they talked about, and he talked about, was the social distancing, cleaning yourself, washing your hands frequently, just like we were taught as kids, wiping things down and being cognizant of that. And I've wiped more doorknobs down in this last week or so than I've ever wiped down in my life. And so it's just a paradigm shift. We all have to kind of think that way. And these things here, wipe these things down. Everybody's got a cell phone. And I got thinking about it, and I don't know, I hadn't wiped this thing down in who knows when. Until it was quite enough I scratched it off my fingertip. But so now this thing gets washed several times a day, and you got to be careful about it too, so you don't want to squirt it with water. Our IT guys will tell us that. But there's stuff like this you got to pay attention to. You're laughing over there, Arthur.
It's the description of this hygiene on your part.
Well, just scratching it off.
Yes.
That set me off.
Nope.
And Maureen, you got something you want to add there?
Yeah, Bill, I have a question. There was a comment there about working together, and a constituent wrote me a letter today, an email, asking about whether or not we were working in conjunction with the university in some of our plans on this.
Well, we have got information from the university, and to answer that, yes, we are working. Each one of us are kind of, I wouldn't say we're doing our own thing, but we're responsible for our own areas, Maureen, but it overlaps, and it doesn't matter whether that's a county or the city or a chamber of commerce or the University of Idaho. In fact, I talked to a lady yesterday from Deary. It was kind of interesting, and she had saw our website on this preparedness, and she thanked me for us, as a city, being out in the forefront, and I thought that was pretty neat. So we've got smaller communities around us too, and it's not that our county's not doing a good job, but you've got folks out in the county that really want to know what to do, and we're the biggest city in our county, so they're looking at us for leadership and making sure we're doing all the right things that we possibly can do. Jen, did you?
Also, just to add to that, Chief Nickerson has been working with Latah County Disaster Planning, University of Idaho Emergency Management, with NESPERS Emergency Management, Grittman Medical Center, and a bunch of others that I'm not remembering at the moment. But they do weekly and even daily updates depending on what's going on in each individual's sphere. And so we make sure we stay up to date on what's going on in the region, in our own area as well.
And by the way, Maureen, I woke up this morning at 3:30, which is sometimes not unusual for me. Usually I get up at 4:30, but I got up at 3:30. And I read through part of the site on CDC, and I was looking through some of this stuff as well as emails. And I'm typing away like mad to somebody, and I must apologize to him because they got an email from me about 4 o'clock this morning. And I was thinking to myself, it was kind of like 7 o'clock Bill time, but so we're focusing on this. Hey, Ann, do you have any comments you want to put out there?
I do, yeah. So a couple questions. Do we have an estimate on how many people have been tested in the city or the state or any of the entities we're talking about working with?
So we don't have any estimates on the city in particular, and I just looked up the state statistics, which were updated as about, I think it was 8:30 this morning before this meeting. There are 38 cases that still have been tested, other than the only confirmed tests that we have are still at 5 as of 8:25 this morning, so.
Yeah, and they've got some, I know Kootenai County has got, last I heard, 5 people that were being tested. There was also 4 people in Spokane County that did test positive for this. So it's close, it's right here.
Do we know in the city exactly where people can can be tested?
Yeah, typically, if you're feeling ill, if you have symptoms that are similar to coronavirus or having health issues, and you call your primary care physician first, discuss with them your symptoms. This is a recommendation we're getting from public health. Once you see your primary care physician, they will refer you to the hospital if you need testing, and it's not a just go to the hospital, it's call the hospital, schedule those, and then move forward.
Don't
Art's-
just go to.
Oh, yeah, okay, Art's saying don't just go to the hospital. The concern that you have is if you just walk into the hospital and present with coronavirus, every person you walk past through the hospital, you have potentially infected. So there's different isolation rooms, and the hospital will walk you through all of that, should you need to come in for a test, to make sure that they keep you isolated and safe, and keep our other care providers really safe as well.
On Friday, they had a thing in the newspaper, excuse me, on Friday, they had a thing in the newspaper about having a mobile unit at Gritman parking lot and testing that out. Do we know whether or not that's getting implemented?
I don't know if it's up and running yet. Last I heard, Gritman's done an excellent job with their coronavirus webpage as well. If you go to gritman.org, and you can get more information on that, and I'm sure once it's up and running, they'll be happy to share that information with us.
Maureen, by the way, Gritman Hospital and Pullman Regional Hospital have been working together on some of these things as well. So it's kind of neat to see. I mean, our groups are working well together. And that one little thing that I wanted to bring up that we haven't discussed, and that's like handshaking and hugging. Now we do the elbow bumps or the high fives from 10 feet away, or the feet kicking, or whatever you want to call it. And for me, and I've said this has been a difficult thing for me because I've been a handshaker and a hugger for my entire 68 years. And so I'm learning new things. So it's just one of those things, but we just have to all think a little bit differently. So, too, as well. And that all helps. These are things that make a difference.
Maureen, this is also something we should note that I know two restaurants in Moscow now have pulled out half of their tables just to increase spacing between people as they eat.
Social distancing. Well,
Yep.
we're fortunate here tonight. We've got 3 in the audience right now, and they're a good 10, 15 feet apart. So that's a good thing.
Just like that. But, and also, there's bars out there that are offering growler refills at a discount if you take out. So,
I heard also some of the restaurants are doing more carryout as well as you can
Indeed.
call in and come and pick stuff up.
Yep.
And so I'm hearing that from some of our local establishments as well. And those are all things that people just have to look at just a little bit differently. And by the way, I want to take a second and talk about hoarding. Holy smokes, you go to the grocery store, you cannot find a roll of toilet paper anywhere. And I don't care if it's Safeway, Walmart, Winco, and people are wiping out and taking huge amounts of things. And just keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, look, there's folks out there that live from week to week, and they need to have these supplies too. So don't buy more than you need. Because think about your neighbors, think about your family, think about your friends, and think about those that are struggling, having a little bit of a tough time, because these sanitation things are disappearing products. I mean, I was in one of the stores today, and I couldn't hardly believe it. And I honest to God, I don't know what all of a sudden why we use so much toilet paper. I mean, I thought I always used it all along, because it's kind of amazing to me why all of a sudden... You know, assess what you need, figure it out, simple math, and kind of plan it out. But anyway, kind of think about that. We all got to share in this stuff. That may seem kind of silly and kind of interesting.
No.
We're talking about something like this in a city council meeting, but it's true. You know, and so there you have it. Good report, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do we need a motion or anything? Are we just happy to have it?
That's just an update.
It's an update.
Awesome.
We've had so many people in our community. I couldn't even tell you how many different emails and stuff that I've replied to and phone conversations that I've had with folks telling them that, you know, about this site, about this coming. Because of course the people are very, very concerned, and they should be. We all should be. And we're moving forward with this, and we'll be updating it as we go. This is not just a once and done. We're going to be paying attention to this daily and every single week, and as we go along, if we have to update, we really don't know how long we'll have to do what we're going to do, but we'll do whatever it is we need to do. It's as simple as that. Thank you again, staff, for a wonderful report, Jen, and putting this thing together. It was awesome.
Appreciate it.
With that, that's going to lead us into our next item, which is number 9, and this is a resolution 2020-05. Jen has the floor on this one as well.
Yeah, this is a follow-up on our preparedness plan, this mayor's state of emergency proclamation that was issued last Friday. The resolution is asking for a period of 7 days to continue that proclamation. One of the things that we talked about in the report that I just shared was some of the social distancing issue, those level 2 type services, those are essential. We'll maintain them if we can, but if it gets to a point where we shouldn't. And specifically what this would continue as we look at planning in particular, there are some things that have been recommended to suspend over the next 6 weeks. We're looking through May 5th, for the most part, looking at those things weekly, though. If the situation changes, then we can change our planning, which makes good sense. So the mayor's already mentioned several of these things, at council and commission meetings, removing our public comment for in-person public comment at these meetings, certainly encouraging online or email communication. Somebody could phone in their comment or their thoughts as well. Public reports on various items, like 1912 presentation this evening would be postponed, as well as commission reports. And then city commission meetings, canceling those through May 5th, except for those commissions that have a legal or quasi-judicial business that they need to take up, and that would be your planning and zoning, your board of adjustment, or tree commission. So city services, this one's a little bit more difficult, but in keeping with what the school district's doing, what it's Idaho Athletic Association's doing for high school sports as well, is suspending our parks and recreation programs. This includes kids camps that is happening this week. We canceled those actually last week, just to give parents an opportunity to make alternate plans. That's would be all recreation programs where people are coming together, and would do that through May 5th at this point, and then continue to evaluate if that needs to be extended, and where that goes from there. Specifically, the city will not terminate water, sewer, or sanitation services for non-payment of bills in this time, providing that little bit of relief for those that may be in need, and getting through if you can't get out of the house to make your payment, if you don't do online payment. Being cognizant that there's some other factors at play here, and so looking at that through the end of April, and then considering future considerations as that unfolds as well. Along with those city services, there are some city facilities that are public gathering spaces. That would be our Hamilton Indoor Recreation Center. That's both the multipurpose room there, and then our gym as well, closing those facilities. That would also include our Egan Youth Center. So that's where after-school program is hosted, closing that for just a short time, just to get through this. Third Street Gallery, which is in this facility at City Hall, closing that as well. We are looking at our city-managed playfields, knowing that we won't have teams playing on them in the short run, but we'll maintain them and get them ready to go. So when things passed and we're ready to play ball again, we're really, really ready to play ball again. So some of those types of things. We are specifically for staff transitioning to that Tier 2 social distancing, so that's working remotely in all instances where we can. We're still maintaining customer service, but it may be more online, maybe centralized services. One of the things we did when H1N1 came through and some other security issues came up is we put a plexiglass partition in front of the finance window there. Provides a great barrier so that you can still conduct business, but you've got some social distancing literally built in. Community development may have permitting staff that they want to have on hand to help customers. Having both of those services, both finance, utility billing, and community development permitting, working out of that same space as long as we can distance them, might be an option as well. So, all out of region travel is canceled. We're still okay with Lewiston and Pullman, but if you don't have to do it, just don't. A lot of those meetings are canceling themselves, which works out well. They probably, one of the more immediate impacts as well is community events. Not just the events that the city proposes, but in keeping with this resolution, would limit any gatherings of 50 or more people. That's the CDC's current recommendation, to avoid gatherings of 50 or more people. Unfortunately, this affects a few community events that we have coming up. So we typically do a community event permit for various groups. Unfortunately, Hemp Fest comes up in April. So does Renaissance Fair, which comes up May 2nd and 3rd. And the Moscow Farmers Market's scheduled to kick off that first week of May as well. What we've done is canceled those events, canceled the permits for those events, and the market will not happen the first weekend in May. We're hoping for the second weekend in May. Again, we'll continue to evaluate all these things week to week, day to day, really, to see if any changes can be made or if those need to be extended, unfortunately. All the preparation meetings for Art Walk, for instance. We'll continue to prepare for Moscow Farmers Market as well. We'll just take our vendor meeting online or electronic. We'll do some different things for Art Walk. Hopefully by June 19th, when Art Walk is scheduled, we will be well on our way. It'll be a beautiful sunny day and we'll celebrate Art Walk at that time. So managing those things, looking to what those impacts on services might have as we go forward and community events in particular. Just being mindful of people's health and safety and trying to provide the best atmosphere we can.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about that, Jen. Things like farmers market, things like the art walk, things like vandal block parties. Ever since I've been the mayor, I've loved lots and lots of activity downtown where we all could be down there and enjoying ourselves. And it's kind of ironic because we're taking the complete opposite approach, which we need to. And ladies and gentlemen, I so look forward to the day that we can go back to that. And believe me, I'll be the first one jumping with joy when we can do this. This resolution will go through May the 5th, and of course, we will evaluate as we go, and those could be weekly, or something may change where we may have to come back with a new one. And of course, when we get towards this, well, we'll see what we need to do for future dates. Don't have any idea, we're just gonna work as we go, is the best thing we can do.
I've got nothing.
That's all we can do.
Yeah, and how about you and Maureen, you got any comments on that?
I mean, as an individual, I've been thinking a lot about what I can do. I've been lucky enough to be able to self-quarantine for the most part. My office, if y'all don't know, the Backyard Harvest office is based at the Gritman Wellness Center. And so with the typical age of the folks coming through there, that has seemed to be a good choice. I'm happy to answer questions at any point about what some of the different food access sites and programs are doing as best as possible. To my knowledge, I need to double check, but there's only one consistent food bank in Moscow, the Moscow Food Bank, and they're open, I believe, Tuesday through Friday. I should double check, but I've been thinking a lot about them and other essential services at this time, and yeah, so I mean that's kind of it. I think just for myself, trying to do what I think is my part, and then as questions come up, trying to encourage the same. So that's my thought on that.
Well, Ann, I want to say something too. I want to thank you for last Wednesday night, and when I was in D.C., you called me up. We had a great phone conversation about some of the concerns you had and some of the things I couldn't hardly wait to share with everybody when we got back, as we've been working on these things. And it just goes to show you that all of us need to be thinking about different things and working towards different things. So thank you for that conversation, Ann. Maureen,
Thank you.
how about you?
No more comments.
Okay. All right.
Your Honor, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the resolution continuing the local emergency proclamation issued by yourself until May 5th, 2020.
Seconded.
Okay, we've got a motion by Gina and a second by Art to review and approve the resolution continuing the local emergency proclamation issued by Mayor Lambert until May 5th, 2020. I will start the roll with Sandra.
Aye.
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 Okay,
Aye, Maureen.
okay, Maureen and Ann, thank you very much. And like I said earlier, we do not have reports that we're going to go into. Ladies and gentlemen, I think anybody want to talk more about the COVID-19 or the coronavirus, or should we call it an evening?
Let's call it a night.
Okay, have I got a motion?
So
Let's go.
moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Third.
Aye.
Aye, okay, ladies. Thank you so much, Ann and Maureen, for joining us. We will adjourn at 8:10.
Hey, Maureen, can you hear me?
I can hear you.